explain what happened. Mills for liberty. Gnostic sex cult building its own world. The Gnostic sex cult unhinged from reality, totally lost in what can we do? The mocking relentlessly. It's not a Gnostic sex cult, James. No, it's not. Stop lying to your audience. No, it's not. It's not Gnostic, James. Mary Nardini tells us queer liberation means the annihilation of capitalism. Catch up, James. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. Queer theory hates capitalism. Whiteness means capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialist knows capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. Whoa. The socialist knows capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Everyone knows it's capitalism. The socialists know it's capitalism. Wake up, James. It's capitalism. It's capitalism. To pocket all that money from the mills for liberty. The left hates capitalism, but James won't admit it. He refuses to believe queer theory stabilizes normativity, gender binary, and the nuclear family. But James blocks the truth, smears people who try to show him, creates an echo chamber for himself to reinforce his fantasy. Is to believe in something. What happens for liberty? Gnostic sex cult building its own world. The Gnostic sex cult unhinged from reality. It's totally lost it. What can we do but mock him relentlessly?
Hello, hello, fellow Gnostic sex cultists. Happy Friday. We did it. We made it through another week. And we even had a break yesterday. But now it's time for happy hour. We are resuming our normal schedule. And I got to tell you, I'm a bit disappointed because my hair is actually indeed red, as evidenced by the picture that I posted on Twitter, but it's not reading as red on my camera with my lighting setup. But my hair is actually red right now. Here, let me show you what it's supposed to look like. If I don't know, I'm gonna have to change my lighting or something. I don't know what's going on. My hair, I can confirm. You should have seen the color of this hair dye. The hair dye was blood red. I was like dyeing my hair earlier, and I was thinking about doing this for a while. I know this is not like breaking news, like Carlin dyed her hair, but I've been thinking about doing this. I was going to do this before AFPAC, and I just didn't get around to it. And so I usually dye my hair some sort of shade of red for summer because I think it looks good. And now it's reading as so dark on the camera. It's supposed to be reading as red, and now I look like even more emo than I did before. And I think I look old with dark hair, and oh no. Well, that's all right. That's all right. Yeah, well, we're not going to do that, Yasmin. I could have, I could have like bleached it, but like, I'm at the age and listen, I have gone through the arduous process of bleaching my hair before, and I'm at the age where I just don't care that much anymore. I just like it a little bit red. I don't want it to be fire engine red. I just wanted it a little bit red, but you know what? That's all right. At least it's something different, I guess. But we're not here to talk about my hair. We have other things to talk about. Yep, the color will adjust in a couple days. Yeah, it will. And we're all just going to have to... No, it's not in honor of Sophie. I gave Sophie the other day a very nice compliment on her Instagram. I said, Sophie, your boobs look great. Sophie posted this whole montage where like half the pictures were like of her boobs. And I was like, Sophie, your boobs look really good. And she deleted the comment. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? All I was doing was complimenting her on her looks. Can't. No, she deleted it. John told me she deleted it. John went and looked. It wasn't there anymore. No. That's all right. Sophie can pretend that she doesn't like the comments about her boobs, but that's all right. All right, we do have other orders of business to get to, guys. I hope you did have a great 4th of July. We are going to be watching today for happy hour. Check this out. Now, I don't want any grief about this. I have watched queer theology. I have listened to presentations about Christian BDSM clubs. I have watched the United Church of Christ talk about queer. We just watched last week the Catholics talking about queer. And so I don't want to hear this anti-Semitism bullshit. I don't want to hear it. Just because we are watching a presentation about gender expansiveness and the 6 different types of genders that exist within Judaism, I have literally watched these presentations with like 4 or 5 different denominations of Christianity. All right. And so what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And I've been threatening to do this because we did a presentation just the other day where we were looking at like Yiddish and non-binary pronouns and stuff like that. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there are like 6 different genders in Judaism. And people came into my chat. They're like, no, Carlin, you are mistaken. There could not possibly be 6 different genders in Judaism. And I was like, I'm pretty sure there are, though. So I did what I do best, and I go to primary source evidence. And I'm not getting this from any Jew hater. I'm not getting this from any anti-Zionist. I'm literally getting this from a Jewish temple that did a presentation called Beyond the Binary, Gender Expansiveness in Judaism. And this was uploaded within the last week. So it's a very, 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 very new presentation. And so that's what we're going to be watching today. We're going to learn about it. And check this out. The person doing this presentation, them doing this presentation, they have a website. Their website is transrabbi.com. Here. Put it in the chat. There you go. There you go, Rumble. Transrabbi.com. They are they, a poet, educator, public speaker, and dreamer. And they are apparently identify as a queer person. It was and here it says, it was trans theory which ultimately brought me back to Judaism. Oh, you're right. It's transrabbi.org, not .com. Transrabbi.org. My bad. So I don't know anything about this other than there is a presentation about gender expansiveness in Judaism. Were they born male or female? Well, I guess that remains to be seen. Let me see. Does it say? Around the time I became bat mitzvah, I discovered my queerness, and it was with the knowledge that I would not be accepted as my full self in my synagogue. I researched Jewish feminism and Jewish trans theory. There's such a thing as Jewish feminism and Jewish trans theory and theology. See, you learn something new every day. I discovered what? Hang on. I'd make this bigger so I can read it. Check this out. I researched Jewish feminism and Jewish trans theory and theology. I discovered ancient gender systems which reject binary gender and complex legal code which intentionally creates space for all individuals. I realized the most important tenets of Judaism: love your neighbor as yourself, everyone is made in the image of God, and humans are not meant to be alone. I bring all my selves to my identity: my queer self, my trans self, my feminist self, my poet self, my dreamer self, my sensitive self, my Jewish self. I believe vulnerability is a gift to be shared as a core form of human connection and blah de da 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 da. I know Sophie's writing that book. It would be really nice if Sophie would come and talk to us, but she won't. Yeah, so we're watching this presentation today about gender expansiveness in Judaism, and if anyone wants to call me an anti-Semite, suck an egg. All right, I've done this again with like 4 different denominations of Christianity. The Jews don't get a fucking pass when they're pushing woke bullshit. Some might argue that it originated with them in the first place. They don't get a pass just because they like to call everyone who disagrees with them an anti-Semite. All right. So that's what we're watching today, and I don't want any grief. Naruto says, hope you had a good day yesterday. Weird that the country also celebrated my younger twin brother's birthday. Yup. Thank you for the super chat, Naruto. Thank you for being a member of the channel for 9 months. I do appreciate it. All right, guys, before we get into that, a couple orders of business. Now, I just wanted to let you guys know. Oh, not that one. Not that one. This one. Check this out. Check this out. This like made my year. Do you guys know how it's been like 2.5 months since I wrote the AI song about James Lindsay and the Gnostic sex cult that I sometimes play as the introduction to my channel? 2.5 months. This is just proof of how far ahead of James Lindsay and his audience that we are. Pizza or tacos? Tacos, obviously. But sometimes pizza, but mostly tacos. Mostly tacos. Anyway, so it's like 2.5 months ago, I wrote the song that using AI that is played at the intro of this video. Sometimes I switch it up with other songs. I have like 3 different AI songs that I rotate through. I'm creating a whole stable of AI songs. All right. And the horde of unhinged retards have literally just discovered this. And yesterday on Twitter, they were like, breaking news. Carlin wrote an AI song about James Lindsay. And they were making this big deal about it. And they're like, oh my God. I was like, you retards. It took the horde of unhinged retards literally months to figure out that I used AI to write a song about James Lindsay's lies to his audience and played at the beginning of my streams. And then they just kept going. And then Poetry Painter got involved, and she's like, Carlin, you idiot, we're laughing at you because you wrote a song about James Lindsay. And I was like, you're 2.5 months behind me. I'm sorry, unhinged retards. I actually think it's a lot funnier that you morons have all these systems in place to track everything I do. You have these secret Telegram groups where you track everything I do, and I now know that because you've had defectors that have come and talked to me about this. You have Telegram groups where you track all my tweets. You have Telegram groups where I track all my videos. You have Telegram groups and official meetings where you coordinate pulling this stuff on Twitter. And you're not smart enough to listen to the intro of a video? And you think I care? You think I care what you think of me? God. They're literally obsessed. Literally obsessed. And they're trying to be like, Carlin, don't you feel bad about this? Don't you know that James Lindsay is living rent free in your head? I'm like, well, not really, bro. I just made a song on the internet. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen to it. That's actually the way it goes. But it took you 2.5 months to figure it out. Just like really unimpressive, assholes. Really, really, really unimpressive. Go back to reading about whatever stupid bullshit you guys are reading about, and the adults will continue over here without you. All right. That's probably the most gossipy thing I want to talk about, though, before we get into it. I do want to remind everyone that if you're not subscribed to my Substack, Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com, please go ahead, go over there and do that. The link is in the description below. And just in case you missed it, when was this? I think this was last week. I feel like I'm so confused about the fact that it's Friday, by the way. Just because we had a holiday yesterday, it's really throwing me off, and like time has now exploded to where it means nothing to me. So I think it was last week we did a spy stream, and this is a rare public spy stream where I go inside a live woke training. I show you guys what's going on. This was actually a really good training, and I very rarely do these things publicly because it just usually makes it harder to pull off in terms of actually going inside a live training. I have that horde of unhinged retards like trying to tattle on me, trying to get my stream taken down, all that stuff. So the porn video, was that what it was? The porn video? Remind me. So usually I don't do spy streams publicly, but this one I thought I could pretty much get away with it for a bunch of different reasons that I'm not going to go into. Anyway, if one of your primary concerns is transing kids and grooming kids in school to think they're trans and stuff like that, then you want to watch this, because actually it was a really good leftist training where they broke down all of the talking points that they're going to be that they're using to push trans and gender ideology onto kids. And so they focus grouped all this stuff. They've tested it. They've pulled it. They know what arguments are resonating with audiences and what arguments are not resonating with audiences. And so if this is your issue, you're going to want to check this out, because this gives you a preview into the talking points the left is going to be using up until election day. And that way, if you know the arguments they're using, you can counter those arguments. Now, I very rarely expect people to actually behave strategically, but if you are one of those people who would like to behave strategically, I have made this public, available for you. All you need to do is go watch it, learn what talking points the left is using, and that way you can counter them. Could you please share your thoughts about, well, no, to be really clear, Lucas Gage is not my frenemy. I don't consider Lucas Gage to be my friend in any way, shape, or form. So we're not frenemies. He's nothing to me except a raging fucking moron. So what's going on with Lucas Gage is he's getting like doxxed and swatted by a group of people that are harassing him. Now, listen, man, no matter what I think of Lucas Gage, and I do think he is an unhinged retard, I don't think anyone deserves to be swatted. Like, and it does kind of suck what they're putting him through, but if Lucas Gage just stopped making content about it, and Lucas Gage stopped giving them exactly the reaction that they're looking for, then maybe Lucas Gage would have an easier time of it. I think one of the reasons that they keep going at Lucas Gage is because he gives them exactly the reaction that they're looking for. This is how the internet works. If you react to what they do, the reaction is what they want. They want him streaming it. They want him filming it. They want him tweeting about it. They want him doing all this stuff. And again, I don't think it's okay to do this stuff. I denounce all of this stuff. It shouldn't be happening to him. His poor family being put through this partially because of his actions. But like, if he here's my actual position. If he really cared about his family, he would cut the shit. I'm not saying the guy can't make content. Of course you can. But it is fairly obvious to me that Lucas Gage is actively giving the feds everything that they're going to need in order to set him up for something. He does this when Lucas Gage brought that blonde woman from Homeland Security into his house and then talked to her about Jewish conspiracy theories for an hour on camera. That blonde woman went right back to the office and wrote a whole fucking file on him. I tried to reason with him to get him to see that he could cause a lot of problems, and he just wouldn't listen to me, and he just kept raging on and on and on about Jewish conspiracy theories, and I really tried to be reasonable with him, and he just recorded the whole thing and put it on Twitter. It's so stupid what he's doing. Like, legitimately stupid. And they're going to come for him someday. And I have some experience with the feds coming for a loved one of mine. And when they come for you, there ain't nothing you can do about it. And if they want to get you, they will get you. And he is handing them on a silver platter everything that they need to do it. So if Lucas Gage loves his wife and loves his kids, then he should stop fucking talking about this shit on the internet right now. And I know that's not the answer that people want. That's not the answer that Lucas Gage obviously wants, because then he's not going to be able to raise all this money off of it and giving people to give him donations and stuff like that. And you know, it's not as though I don't feel for the guy, because I think the swatting is disgusting. I think doxing people is disgusting. I think this entire thing is disgusting. But he also has to live in the real world and understand that he is actually not helping the situation. He's actively making it worse for what is eventually going to happen and how it's going to impact his wife and kids. So, again, not a friend of mine. I don't like him. I don't think he's smart. But if Lucas Gage has friends out there on the internet, those friends should be sitting him down and saying, dude, shut the fuck up. Honest to God, you've just raised a bunch of money. You guys can go on a nice little vacation from all this, but you need, like, for your best interest, you need to stop doing this. And if he doesn't, he's going to get what he gets. And it's fairly obvious to me what's going to happen. And I think it's fairly obvious to a lot of people what's going to happen. And there ain't no way in hell Lucas Gage is going to shut up because he's not very smart. But you can't say that no one warned him when it eventually happens. And so that is my position on it. And I am trying to stay out of it. Anyway, some other things that are going to be coming is, so there is going to be a new chapter coming to the How to Speak Socialist Substack. That is speaksocialist.substack.com. This is where I am writing my next book, except I'm doing it in the form of a Substack. Yeah, Mio, we're watching the Jewish philosophy on gender expansiveness today. You're going to like this. And I want to show you guys. So this is actually the longest chapter of the book I've written so far. And it was just like, I wanted to post it last night, and then the chapter just kept going. It was like 1:30 in the morning, and I was like, shit, I'm obviously not going to finish this chapter, but I do want people to know it's coming. It is a long ass timeline of how I see the leftist revolution essentially succeeding, and it goes back to the 30s and it works its way up to where we are now, and then it's going to like posit what's going to happen in the future, because I am writing this book as a dystopian future book that's like all about basically the Marxists take over the country. So I am writing it from a future position, so it has to posit about the future. But again, everything in the book is real and documented with sources, and it's all happening today. And so that's going to be coming out soon on the Speak Socialist Substack if you want to make sure you sign up for that. And I've also been working on like a feature for the Unwoke wiki, where what I'm basically building is, we've got all this queer anarcho-communist literature in the Discord that Human Centipede or Stony Baloney has been collecting for us, and I'm working on a feature that's going to allow us to put all this anarcho-communist literature on like a timeline so we can visualize the development of this particular subculture. And I've been working on that with Unwoke. This was, again, supposed to be done yesterday, and then I got in an 18-hour fight with my hosting company about it, and I won't get into the gory details, but I won, they lost. And so the feature is going to be coming. It just didn't get done yesterday because I was in a fight with my hosting company. But the things are coming together. I'm going to be launching a lot of cool stuff next week, and I'm super excited about that. And again, guys, if you want to support the work I'm doing, one of the very best ways is not only just heading over to the Substack, signing up for $8 a month or $80 a year. You can also head over to the Unwoke art store, where you can get the specific Unwoke wiki t-shirt with the black on black plague doctor. Oh, check this out. Look what I got. Look what I got in the mail. This plague doctor t-shirt was actually inspired by this, because I wasn't going to donate to Trump after he got convicted of a felony. And then Trump came out with the black on black MAGA hat. And I was like, fuck you, Trump, take my money. I had to have it. Come on. It looks cool. It looks fucking cool. So actually, when I did this black on black plague doctor, that was actually inspired by the black on black MAGA hat, and it looks awesome. And you can get that. That funds the Unwoke Wiki project. There are also a whole bunch of other t-shirts you can get in the store. Got some new ones added. You can go check out the zine t-shirt collection, all sorts of cool stuff. All purchases do go to support the work I'm doing, and I really, really appreciate it. All right, let's get into it, shall we? We are watching. Hey, Mio, I'll put this in the chat again because I don't know if you were there. Oh, fuck, we got to do the beer. I almost forgot about the beer. Jesus Christ, what am I thinking? Hang on. I almost forgot it was Friday. Per happy hour tradition on this channel, I go to the craft beer store and I get 4 craft beers. And you guys get to vote on which one I drink first, because it is Friday, as it turns out. And this is happy hour. If you've got something fun in your glass today, let us know what you're drinking. Let me show you what I got at the craft beer store. I actually got these yesterday and not today. The first one is a goose. A goose is going to be a lot. I was thinking about like lighter beers, like summer beers, stuff like that. This is a beer named Pisces. Now, I was a little incredulous about the name Pisces because the Pisces in my life tend to be very moody and insufferable at times. But, you can't judge beer just by the title. So this is a goose beer, and it actually has, the reason I wanted to try it is that it's actually made with seawater. It's with coriander and seawater. And so I was like, what does that taste like? So it's going to be salty. We know that. So that is the first one. We've got the Pisces beer from Rising Tide Brewing. Rising Tide, I think, is in Massachusetts. Where is Rising Tide? Where are you? Oh, Portland. Never mind. Maine. Portland beer. There we go. That's beer number 1. Beer number 2 is I feel like this is a beer that I would have on a cruise. And so this is from Kettlehead Brewing Company, which is in Franklin, New Hampshire. It's called Southern Dreams, and this is a coconut, pineapple, banana beer. So basically a pina colada in the form of a beer with a really colorful can. And it's a wit, which means it's going to be really light. Like, again, a goose is really light, not that goose, Mio, different goose. And a wit it's a different kind of light beer. All right, that's choice number 2. Choice number 3, and I think I've had this one before. The cherry fruited sour from the brewery that I can't pronounce. I think they're in Vermont. Hang on. No, New Hampshire. Another New Hampshire beer. This is called the Cherry Quencher Fruited Sour with Cherries. This one is 7.3% alcohol, so it's a little bit more alcoholic than normal. That's going to be choice number 3. But I got to admit, listen, if I had a favorite for this week, it'd probably be this one. Sparkle Bomb Sour Ale. I'm pretty sure I've had this once before. But when you have an opportunity to get a beer with glitter in it, you get the damn beer with glitter in it, okay? This is brewed by 603 Brewing, which is in Londonderry, New Hampshire. It is raspberry, sweet cherry, lime, sea salt, and yes, the beer has glitter. So that's our Sparkle Bomb. And so I'm putting the poll in the chat over on YouTube. Let me know which one you want me to drink first. Again, we have the Pisces Goose with seawater. We have the Summertime Dreams Pina Colada. We have the Cherry Imperial. Oh, by the way, this is 6% alcohol. So it's not quite an Imperial, but it is actually more alcoholic than normal. And we have the glitter beer, and I bet I know which one's going to win. Yup, you'll get to see it in the glass. Don't worry. All right, you guys vote on that. Hang on. I also have a leftover beer from last week. Still. Put it in this. I don't even need to see. I know which one you guys are going to vote for. Hang on, let me see. All right, last chance to vote. 10, 9, 8. You guys do the countdown while I put the rest of the beer back in the fridge. All right, shocking no one. We have Glitter Sparkle Bomb. Let's see what the glitter bomb looks like. And guys, please make sure you have mounted the like button. You know how finicky I get when you don't mount the like button for me. Here it is. Sparkle Bomb. Can you guys see the sparkle? You can kind of see it. It's very iridescent. There's definitely sparkle in the beer. You guys see it? Cheers, everyone. Happy Friday. Again, let us know if you're drinking something fun in the chat for us. And let's get our Jewish non-binariness on, I guess. We are watching Beyond the Binary, Gender Expansiveness in Judaism. Let's get this party started.
We'll have some time for discussion. So as long as you chew and swallow before speaking, we'll all forgive each other for continuing our lunch. So this Lunch and Learn is called Beyond the Binary, Gender Expansiveness in Judaism. And what we will do today, We will explore the story of creation through gender expansive commentary. We looked a little bit at the creation story already, and then we'll expand on it by looking at what the rabbis had to write about it. So we'll look at their commentary. And then we will learn about the androgynos. And the androgynos is one of the 6 genders in rabbinic
Androgynous? That sounds like androgynous.
Jewish text. So this first commentary that we'll be studying together is from Breshit Rabbah. And Breshit is the Hebrew word for the first book of Torah, for Genesis. And Breshit Rabbah is a midrash, and a midrash is a rabbinic commentary. It's a rabbinic commentary on Genesis written in the 4th through 6th centuries CE. And so just a little bit of an explanation of midrash. Midrash, the word, comes from the Hebrew root drash, which means to interpret. And so a midrash, they're generally stories or commentaries, but really it's an interpretation. It's a way to help us understand the Torah by offering more information. And so for those of you who have done a little bit more Torah study, Torah can be a little bit like poetry sometimes, where there's a lot in between the lines. There's a lot that's not said. It's not always the most expansive explanations. And so Midrash is really helpful to help us expand on the Torah, to give us more information and help us understand it a little bit better. So this is from Breshit Rabbah. Rabbi Yirmiyah ben Elazar said, "At the time when the Holy One, blessed be God, created the first Adam, created the first human, God created it as an androgynos. As it is written, male and female, God created them." And so we'll get to androgynos in just a second, but to unpack this a little bit, they are picking up on the issues of pronouns that we mentioned earlier, that only one human had been created at this time, and yet they see in the Torah, one, it says male and female, and it also uses this plural pronoun them. And so the rabbis were understanding that this
Wait.
must have been very
They're arguing that the Jews used they, them pronouns back to the first human.
intentional on the Torah's part, that the Torah doesn't have any mistakes according to the rabbis. And so they see it as
Hey, Justin, I wouldn't be so quick to assume that that's a guy.
the them is referring to the male and female, but that is encapsulated in one single being. So they're saying this one single being was androgynous, and that encompasses male and female gender. So an androgynous, as I said, was one of the 6 rabbinic categories of gender. We'll go into all 6 of them in a little bit. But the androgynous is defined as a person who has both male and female characteristics. So this is very much like the English word androgynous. It comes from the Greek, andro meaning male, gyno meaning female, and those being combined. And so for people who know a little bit of Hebrew might recognize that this isn't actually a native Hebrew word. The rabbis borrowed this word from the Greek. So they were definitely interspersed with the Greeks at this time. They were learning Greek mythology. They borrowed some Greek words, but they're doing this in a way to really make it in Jewish tradition and in Jewish text. So they're borrowing the Greek word, but they're not borrowing the Greek mythology.
You should have Adam on to talk about this. Which Adam? I was talking with Adam King about this earlier. He actually does want to come on to talk about it. But I think you might be referring to the other Adam. it's true that Adam was interpreted as androgynous. There was also a good Adam and an evil Adam. The Jews were big on duality. So do you mean Adam King or Adam Green? I'm not sure that one's gonna work. I'm not sure that I don't have anything against Adam Green. I love Adam Green. I think Adam Green's really great. I don't think Adam Green wants to play anymore because of the nonsense with big tech, which is what it is, I suppose. And I would be a little nervous, I guess, about it, given the two of them are friends. So I don't know if things ever get like I mean, things are kind of like more or less smooth over with big tech, I think, but like I'm still a little nervous about it. So that's what I'm saying. Adam Green is the one that looks like the Viking. Yeah. But I don't have any beef with Adam Green, but like I'm just saying. Well, it would have been really nice if big tech hadn't and I hadn't gotten in a massive internet blow up. So like, I mean, they're friends. I'm not gonna like they're friends. I'm not gonna like, disrupt that or anything.
So if anyone knows anything about androgynous in Greek mythology, I'm not learned in that. And so I can't exactly answer any questions about how it fits in with Greek mythology. And the rabbis certainly were aware of it, but they're trying to distance it from the Greek mythology to make it so that it's really not borrowing another person's religion, just borrowing their language. So this is Breshit Rabbah continued. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman said, at the time when the Holy One, blessed be God, created the first Adam, God created it with a double face, one on each side, and then split the Adam along the middle and created two backs, one back here and one back there. So Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman is expanding on what Rabbi Yirmiyah had said previously. Rabbi Yirmiyah is the one who declared that the first human was androgynous, and now they're trying to think, well, what would that person actually look like? If there's one human that is male and female, how can we visualize this human being? How can we picture them in our heads? And so Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman is expanding on this and saying that actually this first being didn't have any backside. They really had two front sides. They had two faces, two front sides. And when I studied this text in rabbinical school, one of my professors really...
Are trans men allowed to be what are... Okay, I am stupid when it comes to Judaism. I don't know anything about it. I've never had any reason to know anything about it. Until now, apparently. What are the rules around who can become a rabbi? Because like I feel like I've seen women rabbis. So I just like I don't know, like I don't know any like who can like can someone explain if anyone in the chat knows?
He made a great point about this. He said that if you think about human beings, we really all look the same from the back. It's really quite impossible to tell someone's gender from their backside. And that it's our front sides that are differentiated from each other. And so the front sides have the different gendered physiology. And so one, this would make sense to have male and female on each side. But then it also makes sense that when you split the human down the middle, you create an identical side for each of them when the split happens. Does that make sense? So
you can see the
but they're going to
boobs.
get a little bit of pushback
never
from
got
their
top surgery.
students. For those of you who know about rabbinic commentary, you probably know that no explanation goes without an argument. So his students challenged him and they said, well, doesn't it say that God took a tsela from Adam, thinking that tsela means rib? Doesn't it mean that, there was a rib and that was how Eve was created? And Rabbi Shmuel Bar Nachman was ready for them. And he said, don't read tsela as rib. That is a mistranslation. Tsela means one of its sides, just as we see in Exodus 26:20. And for the tsela of the tabernacle, which they translate as side of the tabernacle.
So what this person is saying is that they believe, and by the way, I want to be really careful. I don't want to ascribe what this person believes to all Jews. Just like I wouldn't take what that queer Catholic presentation we watched last week and say all Catholics believe this. I wouldn't take any of the queer, like the queer theology presentations we watched and say all Christians. I think that's unfair. And so I also think the same thing. And I want to actually try to be nuanced about this. I'm not suggesting that all Jews believe this. But what this person seems to be saying is that every person is made up as a blend of masculine and feminine, and the way like they have like these two sides of their body, and when God created Adam and Eve or whatever, they split off the female half from the male half of the body. So it wasn't the rib, it was the side of the body. Correct me if I'm wrong.
And so if we think about it, where our ribs are, we call that our side. And so it even exists in English that we might have a word for side, and it can have many different meanings. It can mean a rib. We have a backside as well. That's also a side of ours. Or there's a side of a building or a side of the tabernacle. And so they're saying, yes, tsela can mean rib, but to use it to mean rib here is really a mistranslation. Read it as side. And then that way we can read it as backside. So when God took
so they're just perverting.
what God did was created.
So they're just perverting the text to make it say what they want it to say. Got it. Okay, obviously.
A backside for this two-faced human. Okay, so before we get to the next part, any questions on this commentary or reactions?
So maybe it was meant to be ambiguous, rib or side. I mean, maybe they didn't want to find, maybe in the Torah.
Yeah, maybe it was meant to be ambiguous. I mean, we see that a lot in the Torah.
Unless there are two separate words that they could have used.
Well, so one thing about Hebrew, especially in biblical Hebrew, it has a very limited vocabulary. And one of the benefits of English and also of other languages that the Torah was translated in is other languages had a lot more words available. And so we see this even with Aramaic, that with the translation of the Torah into Aramaic, that was a type of interpretation because Aramaic had a bigger vocabulary. And so it helped people understand what was actually being talked about in the Torah. And so, yes, there's a question of, what does side mean in this instance?
So that made me think about the reasons for which God created two human beings to start later on, because we know from the Midrashim that the human being or the earthling was lonely. And I keep thinking, if you are this being, so first of all, you're one being, but you might have, different sides or different aspects to you. But if you don't see the other side's face, then you never really fully come in touch with it. So it's almost as if, you need to be able to comprehend the other being or the other aspect of reality to feel like you're in a relationship with it.
And that makes me think too, there's the Hebrew phrase, panim al panim, face to face, and it really translates to mean intimate. panim al panim, when you look someone in the face, that you have an intimate relationship with them. And so this first human having two faces, but the faces were on opposite sides of each other, it was impossible for the human to see the other side, panim al panim, face to face. And so
Do they actually? They don't believe this is literal, right? Do they, like, again, I'm asking some dumb questions because this is all a mystery to me, but I do know that there are Christians in the world who take the Bible literally and not just as a book of like ancient wisdom, but they take everything in it as literally as it. So do Jews actually believe that the first humans actually had two faces, one on each side of their head? Like, is this a literal thing, or is this we're making an analogy about human nature thing?
that can contribute to the loneliness as well. And then the separation, then they can look each other in the face and have that intimacy. So the question was, do they explain how the sides were different? They do say that one side was male and one side was female, but that's as far as the Midrash goes. Right. They don't really go into the attributes, but Kabbalah,
Are you here to learn, or are you here to comment on my makeup? I've been wearing the same eye makeup literally for decades. So I don't always wear it, but I find it a little curious that you come here and I don't recognize your name and I've never seen you here before and your first comment is about my makeup. Pay attention. Learn something.
expands on it and they go into the attributes. And I didn't put this here in this presentation, but something that I find really interesting is Kabbalah. It actually talks a lot about gender. It really goes into gender not just as a physiological aspect of our identities, but really as personality, character traits. And so Kabbalah goes into how since the first human was both male and female and was split, that actually Kabbalah says when God split the first human, it wasn't a perfect 50-50 split. That in fact that was impossible. Just think about our bodies, how, our veins are intertwined and everything is connected. And so when God split this first human, there was a little bit of femininity in Adam, there was a little bit of masculinity in Eve, and therefore every single person retains sort of that multi-gendered aspect of the first human. No one is 100% one thing or 100% another thing. And even if you're mostly one way or another way, you have a little bit of that intermixing left over from the first human. And they have a lot of really interesting ideas about gender in Kabbalah. They say, in fact, that because of this multi-gendered being, and also because of the understanding that the soul is housed within the body, and the soul also was therefore split into male and female, that it is possible to have a male soul within a woman's body or a female soul in a man's body. And what I find really interesting is they actually say that a lot of our matriarchs and patriarchs had this condition.
This sounds exactly like what we hear the left say when they talk about how. Hang on. Let me find something. I want to listen to a clip from the socialism conference And then I want to listen to this again. I just need to find the right clip. But it is on my Substack. I know it is. This sounds exactly like what the left says. Not that one. I believe it's this one. Let's just watch this.
When Ramaswamy hails the nuclear family as the greatest form of governance, he is saying that the oppressive binary gender roles necessary to maintain the nuclear family are where oppressive government policies begin. Binary gender contributes to the creation and maintenance of a lower class of marginalized genders, cis and trans women, other trans people, non-binary and gender non-conforming folks who can then be more easily dehumanized and exploited. This is our starting point, the gender binary and its oppressive function. Colluding with white supremacy, colonization, and capitalism, we find the gender binary and ideology behind attacks on abortion, the criminalization of pregnancy outcomes, the mass incarceration of Black and brown people, the separation of families at the border, the criminalization of trans existence. Anything outside its narrow stricture is threatening to it and thus will be a target of the right.
No, that wasn't the right clip. Hang on one sec, guys. Let's try this one.
So on August 23rd, at the first debate of the US Republican presidential primary candidates, multimillionaire Vivek Ramaswamy called for the abolition of the Department of Education.
No, that's not it.
His argument hinged on how education starts
That
in the home.
is not
And he closed
it
by
at
saying the
all.
nuclear family.
Hang on, that's not it. One more time.
The right uses fear as a political tool to build support for their policies and to encourage
No.
the consumption of their media.
I apologize, guys. I don't remember which clip it actually was. There was definitely a clip in this presentation, somewhere in this presentation, and I guess we're not going to be able to find it right now. There was a clip in this presentation in which Mary talked about how non-binary people were considered to be sacred, and they were lifted up as the leaders in ancient societies, and it was the oppressive force of capitalism that basically oppressed these sacred beings that had more than one gender inside them. This is where the idea of two-spirit comes from. This isn't the only presentation we've heard it in. Any presentation about two-spirit, which is like the indigenous version of non-binary or trans, they talk about this, how non-binary people used to be like these respected elders in society. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I apologize, I couldn't find the clip. Maybe next time. Rottweiler, thank you for the member chat. It's a revisionism of culture and theology. Remember, we've heard them say pre-Hispanics were queer and then the pantheons and royal dynasties were binary. Yup, I don't disagree with you, Rottweiler. So, but I want to go back to this now, and I just listen to what this is saying, because this is saying that non-binary is an ancient and sacred position in the community. Hang on. It's saying the same thing.
Therefore split into male and female, that it is possible to have a male soul within a woman's body or a female soul in a man's body. And what I find really interesting is they actually say that a lot of our matriarchs and patriarchs had this condition where they had a mismatched soul and body. For example, they say Jacob, it's said that Jacob was born circumcised. He didn't need a circumcision. And Kabbalah says the reason why he was born circumcised is because, in fact, he had a female soul. And so it reflected in parts of his body. And then they say because he had a female soul in a male body, that this made him multigendered in the way that the first human was multigendered, and that brought him closer
Yo!
to
I'm
God.
making a clip of this. I'm sorry. I have to make a clip of this. I have got to make a clip of this. Okay. I think that's a good place to start. Clippy clip. Come on. Clip. No! No, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. I believe in you, ScreenFlow. Make the clip. Okay, it's working this time. We're only 14 minutes into this presentation.
Ideas about gender and Kabbalah.
Yeah.
A little bit of that intermixing left over from the first human. And they have a lot of really interesting ideas about gender and Kabbalah. They say, in fact, that because of this multigendered being, and also because of the understanding that the soul is housed within the body, and the soul also was therefore split into male and female, that it is possible to have a male soul within a woman's body or a female soul in a man's body. And what I find really interesting is they actually say that a lot of our matriarchs and patriarchs had this condition where they had a mismatched soul and body. For example, they say Jacob, it's said that Jacob was born circumcised. He didn't need a circumcision. And Kabbalah says the reason why he was born circumcised is because, in fact, he had a female soul. And so it reflected in parts of his body. And then they say because he had a female soul in a male body, that this made him multigendered in the way that the first human was multigendered. And that brought him closer to God's image. That made him even holier, more sacred. And that is why our entire people, Yisrael, is named after Jacob. So I find that really interesting.
Hello. Hello. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. All right. That's a good clip for later. Hang on. Hivida says, my family is starting to post cray, Marxist, anti-capitalist stuff. Thank you for being my refuge. Thank you for hanging out, Hivida. And you know what? You can reply to them with stuff that you learn here and clips and articles from the Substack. Help them understand what they're promoting. We appreciate you. Wow. I'm about to give the Grapers a gift with that particular clip. Let's keep going.
To really turn it on its head to say it's not only is it not a mistake, that potentially it's a blessing and that it brings us closer to God and can potentially make us even holier.
So one more other interesting comment
Also,
in this.
Did you notice that this person is wearing a rainbow yarmulke?
This vein, which kind of predates Kabbalah, is the commentary on the book of Proverbs or on Mishlei. And as you know, the most famous part of the book of Proverbs, which is a bit dry and nothing happens there. It's a collection of ancient wisdoms. Is the Eshet Hayil, which is basically the last chapter, the woman of valor, which is the last chapter of the book of Proverbs, and traditionally sung, by a male partner to his female partner. So in any case, there is a verse there, which I will paraphrase as, many were the daughters of Jerusalem, but you have surpassed them all. And then interestingly, the question is, so the rabbis ask, so who were the daughters of Jerusalem, who this woman, has surpassed? And then they give a very confusing answer, because they say, well, the daughters of Jerusalem, which were exemplary models of femininity, were, drum roll, Joseph and Boaz. So Joseph, as in the one who brought people to Egypt, and Boaz, the one who showed kindness to Ruth. We have just read the story on Shavuot. So they had this idea that they were men, but they kind of showed a lot of feminine quality. So because if you think about it, Joseph and his multicolor dream coat, and Joseph, who never achieves anything by military prowess or by strength, but only by smarts, and Boaz, who's basically the epitome of kindness and caring nature. They felt that they were men who represented a very feminine model of being in the world. As in the I think in the traditional rabbinic interpretation, and that is taken into Kabbalah, there is a model. There's two qualities. There's a quality of gevura, and gever is male, and gevura is being a hero. So it's kind of showing active strength. And there is a model of rachamim, and rachamim comes from the womb, which is mercy. So it's so if a person is motivated more by what we would call the drive to achieve or the drive to care, and they would say that that these were gendered qualities. But as we know they're not gendered. Human beings have both in different
Wait.
proportions. So that would mean
Look
that
at this. This is over here on this table in the back. That's the non-binary flag. Those are the non-binary flag colors. I don't know what's going on over here, but that is definitely the colors of the non-binary flag. There's a trans progress flag there. They're eating off of like rainbow plates. This is a whole queer celebration going on at this temple.
that we would, just like we today believe we're a mixture of different of our desire to achieve and this desire to to care for others. They would have said that while it's a theoretical model, as Rabbi Ariel said, that everybody has it to some degree, a mixture of these qualities.
And just to say that this doesn't only apply to the men having female characteristics, but it happens the other way too. Just to give a brief story about Rebecca, Rebecca is very active in her role. So she's the one who comes out and says, "Let me water your camel." She runs to greet the messenger, and these were considered at that time to be masculine characteristics, especially in the ancient Near East. Women were not to be by themselves without a chaperone, and also it was seen that any well or any food would be owned by the men of the tribe, and so it technically was not her water to give, and yet she's taking upon that role. And so they say that Rebecca too has sort of this masculine energy, and that is part of the reason why she was picked to be Isaac's wife.
They'll repeat the question in a second when they're done asking it. It's a shame they couldn't have just had microphones, but here we are. Make sure you mount the like button for me, guys, while we are waiting for the question to be repeated.
Yeah, so the comment was that in a lot of Renaissance paintings, the men and the women look more similar to each other than maybe we would depict them today. And that specifically in a painting of Adam and Eve, they were the same height, very tall. Yeah, and broad, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we see. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So this next section, Merism, it's a phrase that refers to a literary device, and it means in which two contrasting parts refer to a whole. And the reason why I bring this in here is because actually we see this happening all of the time in Torah. Merism is really commonly used in Torah writing, and specifically we see it in the creation story. And so, for example, if we think back to the creation story, it said that God creates day and God creates night. But as Rabbi Mati read last night, the Twilight People prayer, we know that day and night are not the only times of day. We know that twilight exists, and it's this in between of day and night. And so we're not meant to read day and night as a dichotomous binary where only day exists and day is only day, and only night exists and only night is night, but really to think about it as encompassing a whole. So day on one extreme, night on another extreme, but encapsulating everything in between. And so to expand this to gender, we can say this about male and female.
Why
as
are we
well.
expanding this to gender? It's an
Just as God
analogy.
created day and night, but we know that twilight exists. God created male and female, but we know that there is a spectrum in between.
That seems to be a bit of a reach.
Okay, we'll take a little detour into this
God created day and night, and that means that the gender binary doesn't exist.
6 genders of rabbinic Judaism. So I'll first go
Yeah,
through
yeah,
the
yeah, exactly. Queer means from dusk until dawn. Just like the vampires.
6 genders, and then we'll
Yeah,
expand a
this is
little
where
bit more
Twilight comes
on
from.
androgynos.
Hmm.
So these little definitions were adapted from Rabbi Elliot Kukla from transtorah.org. And so he really was instrumental in bringing this back to sort of mainstream Judaism. It has always existed in Judaism, but it has been ignored really for centuries and forgotten. And he really was a key figure in bringing it back into our consciousness and awareness. So we have already seen Zachar and Nekeva. Zachar is usually translated as male in English. And what's interesting is even though Hebrew does not have a very large vocabulary, there is a distinction between male and man. So Zachar is male. It really can encompass anyone of any age, as opposed to Ish, which is man, and specifically someone who is of an adult age. Same with Nekeva. Nekeva means female and distinct from Isha, which means woman. And so we do see a little bit of that separation kind of in English and in today's modern society, what we would consider the difference between gender and sex. We can't let that confuse
What?
us, though, because in ancient times, they did not have Judith Butler, and they did not have a distinction between gender and sex. So even though they
They didn't quite understand because Judith Butler wasn't there to put it into words for them.
have different words for male and man, that's really just about age. They want to make sure that anything that is for male persons applies to children as well, as opposed to other societies that maybe only had children follow male obligations at the coming of age.
Wait, Bot, is this real? Are you making this up? Dusk gender is a gender in which it is more intense at dusk, fading away throughout the night. It can be considered a subset of gender flux. The dusk... Bot, where is the link to this? Can you just put the link, though? Bot, can you just put the link in the chat, though? Because I want to see the dusk gender flag. Jesus Christ. You make someone a mod so they can post links in the chat, and then they don't post links. Thank you. That's all I'm asking for is a fucking link. Thank you. Holy shit. Look at this. From the LGBTQIA plus wiki, dust gender is a gender which is more intense at dusk, fading away throughout the night. It can be considered a subset of gender flux. It is coined with the counterpart dawn gender. Here is the dust gender flag. This is all real, guys. This is not make-believe. This is real. They actually believe this. See what dawn gender is. Dawn gender flag. Look. Dust gender has the blue at the top and the orange at the bottom. Dawn gender has the orange at the top and the purple at the bottom. Dawn gender is a gender which is more intense in the morning, fading away throughout the day. It is considered a subset of gender flux. What the F is gender flux? Let's see. There's the gender flux flag. Oh, there are multiple versions of the gender flux flag. Okay. Okay. Gender flux is a term for those whose gender fluctuates intensely. It can be thought of as a form of gender fluid where agender is the base. Gender flux individuals can fluctuate from feeling 0% gendered, agender, to 100% of a given gender. In between these extremes include being slightly a given gender, Libra gender, to a partially or given gender, demigender, to being mostly but not entirely a given gender, paragender. For example, a girl flux individual can fluctuate from agender to Libra feminine to demigirl to paragirl to fully girl. All right. Thank you, bot. I appreciate you. We'll look more into that later. Thank you.
So, yes, gender and sex are not distinguished in ancient times.
So would it mean that Ish and Isha are basically male and female, but who are able to procreate? So
Mm-hmm. In Yiddish, you said? For female or? Yes. Yeah. I unfortunately do not speak Yiddish, but I know Yiddish has a lot of the same words as Hebrew. So that
Remember, we learned the other day that Zer is a specific pronoun set that came from Yiddish.
Yes, and so that really is talking is just encompassing all ages. So Isha means woman, but it can also mean wife. So that's really specifically a woman of marrying age. And same with Ish. And so Ish and Isha would not be talking about children. And this is really to encompass people of all ages. And then we have androgynos. As I said, this came from the Greek. And it means a person who has both masculine.
Yeah, this isn't actually the point. The point is exactly what I said it was, which is Zer is a specific pronoun set that came from Yiddish. Listening is fundamental if you're going to be on my channel, Michael. This isn't what I said.
And feminine characteristics. And to give a little bit of a sense of how commonly used this word was, it has 149 references in Mishnah and Talmud and 300.
Hey, Michael, I don't give a fuck. Because that's not the point that's being made. So if this is the game you're going to play, bro, you're not going to last long here. I'll tell you that right now.
50 references in classical midrash and Jewish law codes. So it came up a lot. Specifically, you see it came up almost more than twice as many times in law codes, and that's because they were really concerned with if men have certain laws that they need to follow and women have certain laws that they need to follow, what does someone do who is both male and female? How do they follow the laws? So we see it's really commonly used in halachic literature in the law codes because they needed to come with unique situations of how the androgynos could follow Jewish law. The next gender is tumtum. For anyone who speaks modern Hebrew, this sounds like a really offensive term. It's not quite so offensive in ancient Hebrew.
Why is tum considered to be offensive in modern Hebrew? What does that mean?
And a tumtum is a person whose gender characteristics are indeterminate or obscured. And so we don't really have a concept of this in today's society. In ancient times, they considered it of a tumtum person was actually either a man or a woman, but they couldn't tell what they were. We don't really know exactly how that situation would arise, but for example, it was said that Abraham and Sarah were both tumtum before God intervened.
If you are not doing commentary on what is actually being said, it is not helpful. It is disruptive. So we need to focus on what is being said, not your feelings about what is being said. And I want, like, bro, like, I don't mind people interjecting things, but what you're doing is taking one little nugget of something and then going completely off the fucking reservation. It is not helpful. If you don't have direct commentary on what's being said, I don't want you taking one word out of something that's said and going off the reservation to go on whatever fucking ranch you want to go on. You're not, though. You're literally not, and you haven't been. And now you're causing a distraction. And I don't allow this shit in my chat. If you are not focused on what is being said, you will be removed.
And that was why they were unable to have children naturally. And then God corrected their tumtum condition and revealed that Abraham was male and Sarah was female, and then they were able to conceive and have children. So we do see tumtum appears in our ancient texts as well, 181 references in Mishnah and Talmud, 335 in classical midrash and Jewish law codes. And then our last ones, Elonit is a person who is assigned female at birth who develops masculine characteristics at puberty. So when this person is born, they said this person is a girl, she's female, but then she doesn't go through the normal expected female puberty. In fact, at puberty, there seems to be a change that happens. And this person who is presumably thought to be female starts to develop male characteristics and really, in fact, in a way becomes male. And 80 references in Mishnah and Talmud, 40 in Midrash and codes. And then we see the counterpoint to that in Saris. And Saris is a person who is assigned male at birth who develops feminine.
I'm going to be honest, Alexis, I have yet to find one single shred of actual evidence for this whole idea of people identifying as cats. All right, Michael, you just got permanently banned because I told you to stop. You didn't stop, and now you're being a dick. Goodbye. Jesus Christ. Like, every single time with people on the internet, every single fucking time. Every single goddamn time. There's absolutely just no fucking respect. They want to come in. They want to insert their fucking narrative in whatever the fuck you're doing. They don't listen. I asked that guy to stop 4 times. I want it to be noted. I asked him to stop 4 times, and I asked him nicely, and then I asked him more severely, and then I asked him more severely after that, and on the 4th fucking time, that's it. That was 3 more chances than I should have given him. And now he'll go off and complain about, she blocked me, she's a bitch, like, fuck you. Back to what I was saying about this. I have yet to see one actual shred of evidence that conservatives keep talking about, like, all the time, like, students are identifying as cats, they're using litter boxes, da 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 da. I have seen 0 evidence about this. I actually one time got into an argument with a guy at a barbecue. He was working for the Don Bulldog campaign in New Hampshire, and he swore up and down, he's like, I swear, Carlin, there's this one school where they had litter boxes out, and he even told me the name of the school. I was like, did anyone actually get a picture of the litter boxes? Is there any evidence that the litter boxes exist? Can you forward me any evidence at all? He's like, no, you don't understand. It's absolutely real. I was like, well, if it's real, then you should have a picture. Like, you know the name of the school. You're talking about specific students. You're talking about specific teachers. You don't have any evidence, though? This makes no sense. And that happened over and over and over and over and over again.
And characteristics at puberty. But there are 2 different types of saris. There's a saris chama. Chama is an ancient word for son. So it means like a natural born saris, someone who is saris without intervention. And then there's saris adam. Again, adam means human, so it's like almost like a human-made saris. And saris adam is also sometimes translated as eunuch. And this was really a social class in ancient times. And so the eunuchs were generally people who were castrated as a way to give them, they were a social class in relation to a king or a ruler. And, the king didn't want.
No, the litter box thing didn't happen anywhere. The litter box thing is an urban legend that's been created by conservatives to get them all right. It never happened anywhere. There's no evidence of this happening anywhere.
Any men have access to his wives or his concubines. And so anyone in the king's court needed to be turned into a eunuch so that the king could then trust this person to be around his wives or his concubines. And so the saris that are mentioned in the story of Esther, you might have heard of the eunuchs in the story of Esther. These would be saris adam, not saris chama. And there are 156 references in Mishnah and Talmud, 379 in classical Midrash and Jewish law codes. So now we're going to learn a little bit more about the androgynos. And the androgynos is really the one who gets spoken about the most out of all of these 6 genders. The androgynos kind of is in its own category, and you'll see the androgynos pop up a lot. And our text with the most information about the androgynos shows up in Mishnah Bikurim 4. So the Mishnah is a precursor to the Talmud. The Talmud is kind of a commentary on the Mishnah. And this specific chapter, the Talmud didn't pick up on. So we don't see this having a counterpart in the Talmud. So we have to go back to the.
Okay, Terry, then send the pictures. Send the pictures. I want actual pictures of actual litter boxes in school that were actually being used by students. Provide them. Otherwise, I do not believe this exists.
Original Mishnah text to really see it. And Bikurim.
I'm not talking about an article that you read somewhere that's Pinky swears it's true. I'm talking about actual fucking photos.
Means first fruits. It's about offering the sacrifice of the first fruits to the temple. Some of you might have heard that, with agricultural laws, they they gave sacrifices, not just of animals, but also of agriculture. And so in the beginning of Bikurim, they're talking about who is obligated in the offering of the first fruits. And then there comes the question of, is the androgynos obligated in the offering of the first fruits? And since androgynos was mentioned, now they need to say, well, who is the androgynos? What is that person? And so if you were to be writing the Mishnah, and you want an explanation of who the androgynos is, what do you think you would include in that explanation? The creation story. Yeah, so maybe you would include the creation story and say this was the start of humanity. I think it would include some sort of diagnostic information. How do you tell if a person is androgynous? What characteristics do they need to have to be able to be labeled an androgynous? I mean, maybe this is just modern society, the DSM, whatever, needing a set of characteristics in order to diagnose someone. But we actually see something very different what the rabbis do. Instead of having any sort of diagnostic criteria or any stories about how the androgynous originated, what we see is it begins like this. An androgynous has in them ways similar to men, ways similar to women, ways similar to both men and women, and ways that are not similar to either men or women. This is the introductory paragraph, and then each paragraph that follows, so the next paragraph explains all of the ways that the androgynous is similar to men. The third paragraph is all of the ways that the androgynous is similar to women. The fourth paragraph is all of the ways the androgynous is similar to both men and women. And the fifth paragraph is ways that the androgynous is not similar to either men nor women. And so remember I said a little bit earlier how the ancient rabbis did not have any distinction between gender and sex like we do today. So to them, gender encompassed both physicality, our biology and our physical bodies, and also sociology, the social cultural aspects of gender roles and characteristics, personality characteristics. And so in looking at the ways that the androgynous was similar to men, women, both men and women, and neither men nor women, in fact, over 80% of the examples given are social aspects of gender. So what the androgynous would wear, who the androgynous would hang out with, whether the androgynous can marry women or men, things like this. In fact, they have a couple of things that relate to biology, but very, very few. And the things that relate to biology go back to obligations and laws. For example, if an androgynous has a beard, is not meant to cut the corners of their beard similar to men. But it doesn't say an androgynous needs to have a beard. It just says if they do, they follow the laws of men. Or in terms of any type of impurity, the androgynous can be made impure in ways similar to women and similar to men. So they really have double the nida requirements. I know that doesn't really apply to us as Reform Jews, but it was very important to the rabbis. And so instead of getting any sort of diagnostic criteria, instead we get sort of an explanation of the laws that they follow. So it's social and biological, except there's a very heavy emphasis on the social. The biological is really much less important. And in fact, we have absolutely no mention of genitals.
Bro, first of all, if you're not here to learn, you're not welcome here. Secondly, that's not a man. So perhaps if you talked a little less and maybe asked some questions, you could have found that out. But that's literally not a man. So, catch up. Be better.
Which I think in today's society, a lot of people say the androgynous is probably very similar to what we consider to be intersex today, except in intersex conditions, someone who is physiologically both male and female, there's a heavy, heavy emphasis on genitals. Really, that is how an intersex person is diagnosed at birth. And yet the rabbis have no mention of that whatsoever. They're much more concerned with the social aspects of gender. And so in the very last paragraph of Mishnah Bikurim 4, after talking all about how the androgynous is similar to men, similar to women, similar to both men and women, and not similar to either men nor women, Rabbi Yossi says, an androgynous is a being unique unto themselves, and the sages cannot determine if they are a man or a woman. And I included the Hebrew here too, androgynous bria bifnei atzma hu. Because as we've said, Hebrew is a very gendered language. It's actually was not possible to have gender neutral terms in ancient Hebrew. And yet Rabbi Yossi does that very thing. Atzma means unto herself, and hu means him. So really, if I were to translate this literally into English, it would say, he is a being unique unto herself. And it was the rabbi's way of saying, even though this whole time we've been talking about the androgynous with male pronouns, it's just because in Hebrew the male pronoun was considered to be the gender neutral pronoun. Do not think that that means the androgynous is a man. And I will prove it with this
In Hebrew, the male pronoun is considered to be the gender neutral pronoun. That's interesting.
statement by saying he is unique unto herself. Yes, that's also another thing. He in Hebrew means she.
I would actually, building on Hebrew and how multifaceted
Wait.
Hebrew is,
He in Hebrew means she.
bifnei, it comes from in the face of, like that. So I would translate it, androgynous is a he that faces no woman who is like her.
So really we're emphasizing the complexity here and the inability of the androgynous to be categorized into a gender binary.
Hey, Michael. I temporarily unbanned you to give you a second chance. There are 2 rules in my chat. Number 1, don't be a dick. You will not insult me. You will not insult other people in the chat. Number 2, no whining. The next time I ban you, I'm not undoing it. You're either going to comment directly on what we are watching, or you're going to zip it. And if you can't keep it to yourself, you are not welcome here. I have a question. As we learn about the political agenda, language, etc., how much would these people be in agreement, understanding the way the group understanding it? Well, I mean, I said earlier, I don't think that this presentation is representative of all Jews. I don't think we should say this presentation is representative of all Jews. This presentation is representative of this particular person and the people who were in the room at the time. So I think we need to be careful about not making broad generalizations, and that's true of any presentation that we watch.
Absolutely. So the statement is that there's some ambiguity and crossover of gender in ancient times. And I think that was why I started with saying, too, how I was so confused that this isn't a diagnostic information. It doesn't tell us, well, how do you know if your child is androgynous? What do you look for? And even with some of the genders that we saw before, a lot of them, there's a change that happens around puberty. So there's even the idea of maybe you had it in your head that this person was a certain way, but you can't become stuck in your ideas because people can change. And then you need to adapt to the change.
But what I'm confused with is from, well, from the time of the birth of Isaac, or really the birth of Ishmael, the decision was made to circumcise.
I mean, doesn't that sound like rapid onset gender dysphoria? Saying all of a sudden things were just different and it happened when puberty hit. That sounds like rapid onset gender dysphoria.
Very sexual identity from a genitalia standpoint. Men were circumcised, women were not circumcised. But it was defined that a male, only a boy would have circumcision. 7 days. So there was, obviously, when the child was born, no matter what its social or other characteristics, it was defined sexually. Huh?
So that comes up in the law codes with androgynous. So there's a big question of, does the androgynous get circumcised, and at what day does the androgynous get circumcised? I didn't include this in here, but I've done a lot of my own research, so I can say that the rabbi said the androgynous does get circumcised, but for those of you who know a little bit about the laws of circumcision, it is said that for boys, circumcision precedes everything else. So even if the circumcision is supposed to happen on Shabbat, where you normally don't do any sort of work, you still circumcise on Shabbat. It is the one obligation that can precede the laws of not working on Shabbat. But they say, since the androgynous is not a male, even though you circumcise the androgynous, you do not circumcise them on Shabbat.
But how does one define at birth?
That's the question.
How does one define at birth other than sexuality?
Mm-hmm.
Whether the child born is, just take all 6 categories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it'd be pretty easy to determine at birth physiologically whether the child is a par male or nekeva female. I don't see how you can define a child at birth as any of the other 4 categories at birth. These are all defined well after birth.
So if you can't hear, there's like an older gentleman saying that, like, I don't understand how you can define a child at birth as anything other than male or female, essentially.
Probably what has created so much dichotomy in the real world over all the millennia is everyone got fixated on the first 2 and said, at birth, you're either a male or a female.
Right.
And then after a while, rather than understanding that's me how at the beginning,
Whoa.
these other identifications.
And then the guy said, I think that people just got fixated on the male female part, and then they lost sight of all the other genders that could emerge as a person kind of like grows up. And this is like an like I mean I can't be for sure, he's not on camera, but it sounds like an older guy that's saying this.
Identified that they occur after birth, and of course, depending on a whole lot for the contradict itself.
Right.
In this context. But again, I'm curious if a person is androgynous that is physically born male, they would be circumcised. And if
Yes.
they're physically born female, even though they're androgynous, they would not be circumcised.
Right. So there is a lot of ambiguity there of what does the child look like when they're born, and we are not told that they need certain characteristics. And so there are some now who say,
Those characteristics sexual, like penis and vagina.
well, we do today.
Yeah, but even in those days, they said, at least Torah said, your males will be circumcised on the seventh day.
Right.
I'm assuming, because the word circumcision came out, that sexual identification existed way, way, way back.
Right.
And androgynous, while it may have existed, was a byproduct of what was going on in society socially that said this narrow identification of male female isn't going to work.
So one other thing is, so androgynous don't have to get circumcised on the seventh day. So it's to me,
Eighth.
on the eighth day.
Yeah.
So whether it falls on Shabbat or not. So no, it cannot be.
They cannot be circumcised on Shabbat.
So that makes it sound like it's less important.
It is less important, yes, because they're not considered to be Zachar. And so they say that since the obligation only falls on Zachar, that they are not under that obligation. But they say because there is a penis to be circumcised, they should still be circumcised. But then there's a question of, so we have this sort of understanding that if there's talk about an androgynous getting circumcised as a baby, then we can assume that the androgynous baby has a penis. We don't know if that means the androgynous baby has a penis and a vulva. We don't know. It doesn't tell us, but we do know that there are intersex conditions where that's possible. But we also know that the majority of intersex conditions do not have multiple genitalia, and much more likely it is that the baby will look to the human eye to be female, but then if we were to test chromosomes or to do an internal search, we would see undescended testes or chromosomally XY chromosomes, and that's the most common type of intersex condition. And so we don't know exactly, is this referring to what the ancient people would also call sort of a hermaphrodite, someone with both genitalia, or is it much broader and much more encompassing of that? And we have to kind of assume that it's an umbrella term so that it can encompass the physiology of someone who has physical characteristics of men and women, but also the social cultural aspects of it. But then, as you were saying, if it's the social cultural aspects of it, it could be that we go under the assumption that this person is male for the majority of their life until they maybe reach puberty, start to develop more social characteristics, and then we reevaluate and redetermine what they might be. Right, exactly. Mm-hmm.
So I want to comment on the topic of, androgynous circumcision, and how it's confusing, because how do you know it is an androgynous, and when these characteristics that would go against a binary categorization appear later. Well, we need to remember that the rabbis were interested in creating a legal system that would account for all the possibilities, even if all the logical possibilities, even if such a if they haven't encountered one. So the way I read it, and I'm not expert.
Michael, what we're doing, and I'm being nice now, what we're doing is we are understanding their perspective. We don't debunk on this channel because debunking doesn't actually ever solve the problem. So what we're doing is we are understanding their perspective on what it is from their point of view, not from your point of view. That is the exercise.
Like Rabbi Ariel is like this. We know that there's a category of people who might not neatly fit.
That's
into
a good
these
question,
roles,
Maria. I don't know
and
the answer to
we
that.
want to create a comprehensive
Does
set
anyone
of
know?
laws for these people from the cradle to the grave, and that includes circumcision. So the way I read it is, androgynous, when it comes to offering, fruit on Shavuot, it functions in this way. When it comes to, shaving a beard, functions in this way. It can marry this and this person, can be married, sit on this or this side of the mechitza in the old world. And they were like, and by the way, if this person already hypothetically is, shows the characteristics of our androgynous androgynous, when they emerge from their mother's womb, then this and this applies to them. Mitch is right that that it is more likely that that people would have categorized or miscategorized this person early on, but but the rabbis want to make absolutely sure if there is a case when you cannot categorize at all and early on, then it fits in the category of androgynous. So kind of like accounting for if the characteristics that would make the person androgynous would be visible from the get-go. So I think like it's I think what I find amazing about the Jewish law is that it is both a reflection of the reality as they knew it, but also anticipatory, knowing that that are logically possible categories that they haven't experienced, but doesn't mean that that they're not impossible.
And I think just to build on what Rabbi Monty said a little bit more, to
Oh, he's the
say
rabbi
that
as
they
well.
really
Okay,
truly
good.
want to honor God in all ways possible. And part of that is to honor God's creation in the human being that they believe that God created. And so if we look a little bit in, sort of secular approaches to intersex babies, for most of history, intersex children were surgically altered at birth to be turned into female children. They seemed to think that it's easier to take away than to add on. And they felt like, someone had to be male or female, so they would surgically alter the babies. And the rabbis were really saying, you can't change what God created. God created this person as a mixed being, and instead of changing it and trying to determine, oh, can we make it into a man? Can we make it into a woman? Instead, they say, well, how can we alter our laws to give space for this person to be both? And so there are a lot of complications that come up with that, especially understanding that not every one of the babies is going to look the same or really be similar to each other. And in some ways, it's going to be contradictory to the laws that end up. And so, for example, of one of the contradictory laws, we know that there is this ancient prohibition on homosexuality in ancient Judaism. And if someone is both male and female, if they were to marry either a man or a woman,
Oh,
it would
wow.
technically be a homosexual union, because no matter who they end up with, it's same sex in some way. And so because of that, they say, well, women with women is less offensive to the rabbis than men with men. So they say, ideally, an androgynous should marry a woman, because that way it's less likely to be a male-male union. But then they also say, however, if an androgynous is to marry a man, that marriage is considered to be binding and valid, and they would still need a get in order to get a divorce. And so we do see some contradictions here. They say, well, they really shouldn't, but if they do, it's okay. And so I think that goes back to Genesis as well, to the very first creation story where God said, it's not good for humans to be alone. And they're understanding that, well, in a perfect world, it would be a lot easier than this, but it's not easy. And we have to make sure that no one gets ostracized from society, that they can't, engage in customs and rituals, or that they can't have a holy union that is, respected by the rest of society.
Question. From birth until identification, you identify puberty. It could be earlier in puberty, but let's say identification through socialization, whatever. It appears to me your number 1 and 2, the Zachor Teva, really gets more identified in the 5 and 6, which then where they're born with a sexual identification based on physiology, except for those children that make people that are born with a multiple identification, which is very rare. But they're born with one identification, and the change occurs through socialization, the social world, when they become aglonit or paris, where they realize that what they look like at birth, they're not as their body, their chemistry, whatever the reasons are, the socialization, they are not identifying with the physical way they were characterized when they were born. So I see the connection between 1 and 2 and 5 and 6. The 3 and 4, the obscured or both. It's hard for me to understand what's obscured versus both, particularly in birth. I can understand the obscured or both as a child is moving along because there's so much conflict. But I think that ultimately ends up being either one or the other identifying binary.
Right.
Then that's true androgynous because you're identifying binary. You're going to be both male and female for that individual. That's sort of the way my old-fashioned old style reconcile what was taught to me, the opposite way.
So that's part of the problem with the texts that we're given, is that they really only tell us what laws each of these beings should follow. So we have absolutely no characteristics of how to identify these people. Everything that we have of characteristics, we're reading backwards. We're sort of detectives of saying, well, if they need to shave, if they can't shave the corners of their beards, that must mean that they have beards. But we weren't told that they had beards. Right? So everything we're doing sort of this deductive reasoning with. It would have been a lot easier had the rabbi said, here's how you determine if someone is androgynous. And if we see from the androgynous too, it's the one, well, we don't see it in the first two, but we don't see any mention of birth. It doesn't say a person who is born with male and female characteristics. So we don't know. We know that there are some babies who are identified as androgynous because they do talk about the 8-day circumcision for androgynous. But we don't know if they needed to be identified as children or if they could have been identified later in life. We just simply do not know.
The custom, we should put that up for the millennium. Does it not?
What do you mean?
I mean, from the beginning, whether when it was I studied Torah or 2,000 years ago, the Torah started coming out.
Right.
It created sexual identification. And so sexual
Right.
identification became the norm until recognition occurred in the rabbinical writings, which were centuries later, that, wait a second, there's a whole group in between, either at birth or identification through socialization.
Right.
Don't fit the quote mold. The mold is written in Torah as a mold, and then later time said, wait a second, there's way more than the mold here.
Right.
We need to understand it, but even as we understand it, attempt to understand it, we still, if we're going to go have identification on gender, I'm trying to figure out how my child could be identified as anything other than in their physical body. That physically, now that
Right.
is history and background and creation. I'm trying to figure out how do we go beyond the 1 or 2 steps on day 1 through day 10 of the child's life.
We don't know.
Yeah,
We don't know.
I don't think we, unless we do genetic testing, I don't think we can.
Right.
Other than what we see.
But so what's interesting about this is because, here, let me see if I can pull it up just for people to glance at. I do have the entirety of Mishnah Bikurim, and let's just take a quick look at it. So we would think with our sort of modern conception of gender being, as you said, very physiological, and also that ancient gender, we consider that to be very physiological. Of a child is born, you determine if they need to be circumcised or not, you've determined their gender. And so I have this fun little color-coded document of the entirety of Mishnah Bikurim 4. Let's see if I can make it bigger. And so this is where we have to really go back in time to conceptualize gender in ancient times and to understand that it really was not as physiological as we would like it to be. That's really a simple answer. That's the easiest answer for us. And that's really not how the rabbis conceptualize things. So you'll see I put biological aspects in blue and social cultural aspects in pink. And we don't need to read word for word.
Can we get that through Safari?
Yes.
And so it'd be tractate what? Mishnah Bikurim, tractate 4. Mishnah.
So they're saying that biology didn't matter to ancient
And so you can
rabbis.
see that the majority of it is what we would consider to be social cultural. And how do you diagnose or determine something that's social cultural? It's really quite impossible. And so just looking at what they had listed, we would have to guess that biology only played a very small role in it. And we don't know how much that meant that they were
Why would you assume that? I wouldn't make that assumption. No one said that.
analyzing how people behaved and letting that also influence the way that people were identified. And so you're right that there is very much a focus on the biology for the first 8 days of whether circumcision happens or not. But then we have to imagine that they kind of kept things open-ended. Well, let's see how this child behaves. Let's see, what they gravitate toward, and sort of give them the option to be themselves in their fullest way as an adult. And that might make their life more difficult. The androgynous actually had to follow double the rules because they had to follow the rules for men and the rules for women. So it wasn't an easy choice to make. But they did not force the androgynous to pick a side.
Well, you didn't ask, Kelly. You assumed. Like you didn't ask. Hang on. Let's just see. Let's see where it is. Where is shit? 1 hour. Where is it? Here's their website. We'll go back to the presentation. Hopefully it saved my spot. I know I was an hour into it.
So when this person is born,
Wait.
they
No.
said this
No.
person is a girl. She's female.
No.
This is how you determine if someone is androgynous or not.
Hang on. We're about right there. Hang on. Where is this temple? Yeah, it's not near Chicago at all. So my point is that we don't make assumptions. We deal in receipts. This is in California. It's not in Chicago. All right, guys, I guess we got about time flies when you're having fun and watching Jewish presentations. We have about 10 minutes left of this. We've already gotten one good clip. Maybe we'll get another one. I do think this is interesting information just to hear them talking about this in like their kind of like private spaces, and to hear how like no one really seems to think this is an issue. Makes total sense. No pushback at all. No discussion about really any of these ideas, because it does seem to me as though and listen, I'm no scholar of like Hebrew text or anything, but it does seem to me to be like, are there 6 different types of gender expression in these texts? Yes. Well, this isn't, hang on. Don't assume this is just in California. I knew about most of this stuff already, and it wasn't because I live in California. It's what righties always like to do. They think this stuff only happens in blue areas, so it doesn't really affect them, and then they're wrong, and then they wonder why. What I've heard, I think, in parts of this is like things taken out of context and twisted to mean something they probably didn't mean for the sake of convenience. I'm not saying that's the whole thing, but I'm saying that's at least part of the thing. Well, okay. Let's just keep going. Anyway, guys, 10 minutes left. We're almost there. And then we will depart for our Fridays.
Mishnah Bikurim, tractate 4. Mishnah.
And so you can see that the majority of it is what we would consider to be social cultural. And how do you diagnose or determine something that's social cultural? It's really quite impossible. And so just looking at what they had listed, we would have to guess that biology only played a very small role in it. And we don't know how much that meant that they were analyzing how people behaved and letting that also influence the way that people were identified. And so you're right that there is very much a focus on the biology for the first 8 days of.
Hang on, we got a super chat from Nurutu. Thank you. Mount the like button. 9 times out of 10, I hit the like button before I even start the video. Yeah, guys, please make sure you mount the like button before we conclude today. I would really appreciate it.
Whether circumcision happens or not. But then we have to imagine that they kind of kept things open-ended. Well, let's see how this child behaves. Let's see, what they gravitate toward, and sort of give them the option to be themselves in their fullest way as an adult. And that might make their life more difficult. The androgynous actually had to follow double the rules because they had to follow the rules for men and the rules for women. So it wasn't an easy choice to make. But they did not force the androgynous to pick a side. And in fact, we see a sort of emphasis that it was wrong to make them pick a side. As Rabbi Yossi says, they are being unique unto themselves. You cannot determine if they are a man or a woman. You have to accept them as they are. So there are some people today who would like to say the androgynous only refers to physiology. It's a physical aspect, and that people who are transgender cannot identify with the androgynous because this is purely physiological. But then I look at this text and I see that there's actually very little here that is actually physiological, and the majority of it is social cultural. So I think that it's really hard for us to get into the mindset of what gender was like 2,000 years ago. We have a completely different concept of gender today. And the way that we understand gender today really cannot be pushed back onto the gender of ancient times.
So let's go into the 21st century on gender today. Are most transgender people who are in the 5 and 6 category, the agnolit or saris, are they androgynous, or have they made a choice, like you? Have you made a choice to identify gender versus being androgynous?
So I would say that's up to the person and their society. Absolutely. Yeah, how they view themselves and also how society views them. So we'll see in other cultures as well, there's an idea that people who maybe we would call transgender in today's world, they might use different terms in their native languages. They were considered to be more of a third gender category, where even if they take on the roles of women or take on the roles of men, they are considered to be separate multi-gendered beings. And so I would say that that's very similar to this of even if an androgynous really plays more of a social role of a woman, they're still considered to be a multi-gendered being, and that multi-genderedness is honored. And so it really depends on every single unique situation. And this is actually what they go into with the Jewish law codes, is they say, when we make a determination on what the androgynous should do halachically according to Jewish law, we actually can't have one blanket rule for all androgynous people, because the way in which they're multi-gendered is different person by person by person by person. And so they say there needs to be a rabbi to speak to this person and to give them a unique law that they should follow, each individual. And that makes it so much harder, because everyone else, they have a book to follow. They don't need to go ask a rabbi. They can follow the book. Oh, women do this. Oh, men do this. So that's easy. I know where I fit. But they say actually the androgynous needs a specific individual ruling for every single person. And some people consider that to be difficult. It requires a lot more effort. But the way that I see it is they were really honoring the uniqueness of these individuals, and they were really refusing to put them into any sort of box or category. even the category of androgynous is really ambiguous. It's more of an umbrella term than even really a gendered category. And they were saying that every single androgynous person is unique, and we need to see them as the unique individual that they are, which while it's very difficult, there's also so much freedom in that, because the androgynous doesn't feel like they need to be a certain way in order to be respected. Any way in which they are is a way in which is valid and should be recognized.
So I'm aware that our could you actually pull up
Did you just hear
the
that? Hang
Mishnah
on.
just for
Any way in which they are is valid and should be recognized. What does that sound like? What does that sound like to people? I know we're getting late in the presentation. Any way they are is valid and should be recognized. Again,
A certain way in order to be respected. Any way in which they are is a way in which is valid and should be recognized.
what does that sound like? What does that sound like? Be more specific. Come on. Come on. No, no one has gotten the right answer so far. Any way in which they are is valid and should be recognized. What does that sound like? No one has gotten the right answer so far. Nope, no one's gotten the right answer. Any way in which they are... Guys, listen to the question that I'm asking. Any way in which they are is valid and should be recognized. What does that sound like? There is no reason why someone hasn't gotten the correct answer yet. Yes, it sounds like affirmation. Where does affirmation come from? Why do you say that? Give me more. Nope, this is completely wrong. Completely and totally wrong. Only people who listen to conservative propaganda believe this. Completely wrong. Where does the idea of affirmation come from? What is that? Nope. Nope. No one's... Okay, we're just going to keep going. No one's getting the right answer. I'm really disappointed that no one's getting the right answer, but no one's getting the right answer. Nope, not equity. I didn't say that. Here's the problem, guys. You're just throwing out keywords. This is what we've been talking about lately. You're not listening to the question I'm asking, and you're just throwing out buzzwords in response. I am sick of this. I don't want to see people throwing out buzzwords in response to very specific questions that I'm asking. Nope, wrong, Steve. Wrong. Wrong, Michael. You guys have all seen presentations where we deal with this. I've written about these presentations on my Substack. You guys have all been exposed to this information. Nope, D. Nope. That's not where it is. All right, no one knows the answer. Let's just keep going. You guys can look into that and tell me when you figure it out.
So I'm aware that could you actually pull up the Mishnah just for one more second?
No, I'm not giving a hint. Do you know why I'm not giving a hint? Because I have covered multiple presentations for both Spy Stream and the public streams that cover this topic. I have written about this multiple times on the Substack. This is completely wrong. You didn't get... I don't believe you, bro. This is a complete and total lie. Everyone please disregard everything this person is saying. No, Julian, I'm not going to repeat the question again. I already repeated it 5 or 6 times. The reason I'm not giving a hint is that all you guys are doing is throwing out buzzwords that don't actually mean anything, which tells me you don't understand the answer, which tells me you are not paying attention. The people who are responding have had access to this information multiple times. Nope, they're not changing the language, Hibida. That's an excuse and a deflection. So you guys can think about it. We're going to wrap this up. I'm not going to end early out of frustration over the fact that you cannot repeat a very, 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 very basic answer. We're just going to wrap this up and then we're going to go. And if you guys happen to figure it out at some point, let me know. But you all know this, or you should all know this. And if you don't, that's because you haven't been listening.
Because I've been thinking, what is like the emblematic text to read on Pride Shabbat, and kind of like, how can sum it up on an uplifting note. And I feel like, the very, very purpose of Pride Shabbat is to recognize and honor our common humanity. And when I read Mishnah Bikurim many years ago in rabbinical school, what I
Michael, as I have previously explained to you already at least twice in this stream, our goal is to understand them from their perspective, not to understand whatever fucking narrative you're trying to shill. It is to understand them from their perspective. Now, this is the third time I've told you this. Again, bro, I have told you multiple times to shut your fucking mouth, to open your ears, and to listen to what is being said. If you are not capable of listening to other people, you are not going to last on this channel. I don't give, oh my God, we are like 5 minutes away from being done this, and now we're descending into the land of retardia. The entire chat has gone retarded. Bro, I don't know who you are. I've never seen you in my chat before. I don't give a flying fuck what your lived experience is. Your lived experience means nothing to me. What means something to me is understanding what the people that we watch believe. That is what we're doing. If that is not what you're here to do, go somewhere else. Oh my God. No, you are, bro. You're shilling a fucking narrative.
what I most identified
Complete
with
waste of a
is this
stream,
capital
what I'm
4.
getting.
How
Complete
is
waste
an
of a fucking
androgynous
stream.
similar to both men and women? Guilty are those who strike them and curse them like men and women. So like, just like, like if you strike or curse a man and a woman, you're guilty. Just like this way, you're guilty if you strike or curse an androgynous. One who kills them unwittingly is exiled, and if with evil intentions is put to death, like the one who strikes men and women. Their mother brings for them a sacrifice after their birth. They eat the qualified sacrifices like those, like men and women. They inherit all the inheritances like men and women. So effectively, there are all the differences. But what is the main here qualifier, and what unites androgynous with the rest of the Jewish community is the fact that they enjoy the same civil rights. And I think, and I think that is, for me, a powerful thing, that like, yes, everybody was somewhat oppressed, in antiquity, because everybody, had to marry at 18 and, and have children and so on. Or in the case of a woman, even at 12 and 3 months, but so everybody was oppressed by.
Kelly, when have you ever heard me or anyone ever on a stream say naming the demon? If you have never heard me say it, and you've never heard someone on a video that we're watching say it, then it has no relevance to the discussion.
By gender roles of sorts, but at the same time, these people who didn't fit in them all that neatly were still granted all the rights and all the protections that everyone else.
And just one more statement on that. My favorite part of Mishnah Bikurim 4 is that it has a little bit of a sense of humor. And you'll see this line that's not color coded that I'm highlighting right now. And if someone says, I will become a Nazarite if this is both a man and a woman, behold, he becomes a Nazarite. And so it's saying that other people will doubt you. They'll say there's no possible way that you're both a man and a woman. And if they dare to make a vow to say, I will change who I am if this is your real identity, whoops, they've changed who they are.
That's
because
not
this
the
is
question
your
I
real
asked, Bot.
identity. And so I love that the Mishnah has a little bit of a sense of humor about this.
I mean, and there's also like a legal implication, because if you are a woman, your guardian can cancel your Nazarite vow. But if you say I am a Nazarite like a man and a woman, so the part that is your female vow can be cancelled, but the part that is your male part cannot be cancelled. So your femaleness might have been cancelled as a Nazarite, but maleness wasn't. So you're a male Nazarite.
Well, that brings us to our end. I just had some last discussion questions. Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this, but just to think of, how might our Judaism or Jewish practice change if we consider the androgynos more intentionally? If we make sure that the androgynos does not become sort of this ignored, obscured sort of footnote as it has in the past, but if we think more intentionally about the androgynos as a part of our tradition and as a part of our current culture.
All right. I think that's the end.
So I
Oh.
identify very much as a cisgendered gay male. So that was clear to me, but from a very early age, both aspects of both the cisgendered and gay, and the study of androgynous gave me a huge boost, because I was able to reconcile them both with an idea that that my gayness is not something that is kind of a sign of femininity, or that basically I was like, okay, I can have my gender identity and my kind of sexual orientation, and these two are exactly the way
Not
they're
really.
supposed to be. They kind of reinforce each other and they are at the interplay with each other, but I don't have to change one of them to fit the other one.
Yep. That's pretty much the end of the presentation. I will say that Gloria came closest to the answer that I was looking for. When we're talking about affirmation, which is what they were talking about, to affirm someone's lived experience is to be in solidarity with that person. To not affirm is to cause harm or is to do literal violence. This is about as close as anyone came. So I appreciate this, Gloria. Thank you for showing me that you're listening. And guys, I've said this before and I've been saying this a lot lately, and I feel like people aren't listening. And that really bothers me, because literally all we do on this channel is listen. If I ask you a question and all you do is throw out buzzwords and you regurgitate my generic talking points, when those buzzwords and those generic talking points have nothing to do with the question that I asked, that's not what we're doing here. Okay? That's not what we're doing. And I don't accept it. And you're not going to get points for it. And you're not going to get praise for it. You need to listen to what is being asked. Because if you don't listen to what I'm asking you, chances are, if you ever run into someone in the real world, like a friend or a family member, and they're asking you specific questions, you're also not listening to what they are asking you. And if you go into the real world and you're trying to answer questions about this, because the whole point of this is to teach you guys how to go into the real world and to teach other people. If other people, normies, are asking you questions and you don't listen to what they're asking and you just start throwing out buzzword, 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 it's going to mean nothing to them and it's going to accomplish nothing. You have got to start listening. I am no longer going to accept. There are some of you who have been around for a long time. There's some of you who are new and you need to learn, and that's fine too. If you're new, that's okay. But there are some of you that have been around for a long ass time that are just throwing out buzzword, 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 buzzword. You're not answering the questions that are being asked. You're not getting close to answering the questions that are being asked. And then you get all confused about why your answers aren't being accepted and you're not getting praise. The reason that you're not getting praise is because you are not answering the question that is being asked, because you aren't listening to the question being asked. You're listening for keywords so you can be the first to get the answer into the chat. Guys, I don't give a flying fuck who gets the answer into the chat first. It makes no difference to me. You're not going to get a medal. You're not going to get a prize. You're not going to get anything if you're first into the chat. And when you get the wrong answer, because all you're doing is putting out buzzword, 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 without listening to the question being asked, you're actually going to get admonished from me from now on. Because I understand this has turned into a game, right? You all want to be the first to get the question in. You all want to get the praise that goes with it. I will give you praise when you get the answer correct. I will not give you praise if all you're doing is throwing out buzzwords because it sounds good, because you wanted to be the first person in the chat, okay? That's not what we're doing here. The goal of this is to make sure people learn. If you're putting out incorrect information, then people are not learning. And that defeats the entire purpose of why I sit here for hours every day, 6 days a week anyway, and do this stuff with you guys. Accuracy matters. It is not about the dopamine hit. I don't give a flying fuck if you get your dopamine fix. It means nothing to me. Go get your dopamine hit by sharing like clickbait bullshit on Twitter. Go get it that way. When you're here to learn, and that's all we're doing. And that does wrap up what we have today. Now, Trendlin keeps asking me to do the porn is bad video. All right, Trendlin, hang on. All right, amaze, porn. Not that one. Not that one. Porn isn't sex ed. Okay, we will play ourselves out today with the porn isn't sex ed video. If you haven't seen the porn isn't sex ed video, this is something that your middle schoolers are seeing. In some cases, your elementary schoolers are seeing. And I will be back tomorrow. Actually, we might start a little early tomorrow for Socialism Saturday. We might be starting around 4 p.m. Eastern Time for a special Socialism Live pregame. I will be sending out more information about that. Make sure you're following me on Twitter, Dr. Carlin B. Make sure you're in the Substack channel. It's t.me/unwokex. Make sure you're following along. You're subscribed to the channel. You're getting notifications. So we will be going probably live tomorrow around 4 p.m. Eastern for a special pregame live presentation. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. But for right now, let's play our way out. This is Porn Isn't Sex Ed. And this is taught in schools all over the country on your taxpayer dollars. Let me make sure I have the sound set up. I'll see you tomorrow for Socialism Saturday, guys. Take care. We'll see you soon. Bye.
Oh, hi, guys. You're just in time for my first online driving lesson. This is the best way to learn how to drive. At least that's what my dad says. Anyway, so here we go. 2 hands on the wheel, gear in drive, and slowly step on the gas. Whee! What the? Okay, I'm okay. Whether you're looking for it or just bump into it, viewing porn is a common experience for a lot of teens. And while it's completely normal to be curious about sex, bodies, and how things work, porn is not the best source of sex education. Let's see some of the differences between porn and real life. Pornography often uses white actors with dramatically enhanced breasts and penises. The actors are often waxed to have no hair. In real life, you will typically see bodies with a variety of skin tones, body shapes, sizes, and abilities. Porn uses exaggerated special effects and other movie-making tricks to produce fantasy, such as semen from a penis being ejaculated much farther than is humanly possible. Additionally, people with vulvas often have easy and frequent orgasms, which also does not reflect real life. Pornography can often involve multiple partners with no mention of methods of protection, since pregnancy and STDs are a real-life concern. In pornography, sexual behaviors often take place without the context of any relationship, let alone one with any degree of emotional intimacy nor equity between partners. In real life, many people find that sex feels better when it's in the context of an intimate and caring relationship. So, if you want to get real answers about puberty, sex, and relationships, you should turn to the trusted adults in your lives, or get honest information from healthcare providers, libraries, bookstores, educational websites, and apps or bots designed to provide sex education. Until next time, don't forget to visit me at amaze.org or go to my YouTube channel to watch more. Bye!